It is time to live for others. That has been the command of God as woven so clearly through the scriptures, that it's time to live for others. That has been the call, the impetus, the implication of all of this series, that for you, that for me, that for us individually and collectively, it is time to live for others. It's time for you, it's time for me to take steps toward a life that's not all about ourselves, that's not all about just what I can gain or you can gain, or how well we can make our lives, or how easy we can make our lives, or how prosperous in the eyes of people we're trying to impress we can make our lives. That's not what this life is about. It's about using everything God gives us for His glory and the good of others. It's about living a life that looks a whole lot more like Jesus in the way He lived His life than the way many people would tell you this is what a good life ought to be. It's about following the commands of Scripture. It's about being that irresistible force that is the church of Jesus Christ, living for others. And one more time in this collection of sermons, I want to bring us to the Scripture, to an encouragement from Peter. The book of 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 10, he gives us these very simple words on today that I pray would stir your heart one more time. He says, just as each one has received a gift, use it to serve others as good stewards of the varied grace of God. He says a few things here that are important for us as we put a bow on this collection of sermons, as we, my prayer, begin to take steps personally, collectively, as families, as groups, as individuals, to take these steps to walk out this life for others. He says, each one of you has received a gift. I know some of us look at ourselves and think, well, they're gifted. They've got talent. They've been blessed. They have resources. Peter says each one has received a gift, and you're to use it not for yourself. You use your gift to serve others. And then he makes this powerful little connection I want you to see before we carry on today. He says that good stewardship looks like serving others. I'm letting that marinate for a second. Good stewardship looks like serving others. What it looks like to be a good steward of the gifts God gives you, of the connections, the resources, the talents He places in your lap. What good stewardship looks like, according to Peter, is when you use it to serve others. See, that's the thing about everything God has given you and given me, that quite honestly in our world today, we never take into consideration. That He doesn't give you what He gives you for you. He gives you what He gives you for others. That maybe the reason, I know this will mess with your thinking, but maybe the reason you've been promoted is not for yourself, Esther. Come on, all my Bible people. Maybe the reason you're in leadership there isn't just so you can be the leader, isn't just so you can have a salary instead of being hourly. Maybe God has given that to you for others. Maybe He's blessed you with talent, given you connections, brought resources to your life. And they're not just for you. They're not just about you, but they are actually for others. Now, I know that this is the 5th installment, and some of you have been joining us every week in this series, and for that, I'm so grateful. I know sometimes in church, we see it, that when you start teaching, you start preaching heavily and leaning into generosity, it's funny how people want to be on vacation then, and how people are like, I don't really feel like church. Tell me when they're talking about, I get it. But some of you have been tracking with us every single week. You've been listening to the podcast, watching online. You've been attending it in person some. You've been doing whatever it is you do. And I want to thank you for that. But even if you're someone who has been 5 weeks deep into this with us. The words out of my mouth still sound strange. The call of God for us to live for others sounds a little confusing because, well, his kingdom is upside down. It's upside down from every advertisement you see. It's upside down from every piece of good counsel that someone would try to give you about how to use your time, about your mentals, about your personal self-care, about good financial, whatever. Like it sounds so backwards. And the only thing I can tell you is, well, that's because it is from the pattern of this world. Jesus had to correct his disciples. We've shared this a few times in the series, that the Son of Man himself did not come to be served, but to serve. That literally, he says, the whole reason I came was not so you would bow down to me, not so I could be sitting on a throne in your physical presence, but I came to lower myself for your good. I came and I stripped off all the rights that I have for your good. His ways aren't like our ways. They're higher. His thoughts aren't like our thoughts. They're higher. And what we have to grab today is that you've been gifted. I've been gifted. We've been gifted. We have been gifted by God resources. We have been gifted by God abilities. We have been gifted by God influence. And it's time to use them for others. And some of us in this journey have found ourselves a little lost, I believe. You ever been lost? Like really lost? And I know for me, I don't get lost driving too often, particularly in Memphis. I feel like I got a good understanding of where I'm at all over this metroplex. But you can drop me in a theme park, and man, I get so confused. I think theme parks are designed tricky. I really do. I think they create them in such a way to get you lost, and now you're trapped in there. Whether you go to a big water park or you go to an amusement park with the roller coasters and all this kind of stuff, I can't tell you. It doesn't matter which one it is. Doesn't matter how many times I've been to it. If I'm trying to lead myself or my family or a group of people around, it doesn't matter. I get lost, and so I find myself in this habit when I'm at a theme park of constantly having to go to these maps that they have there, right? And they got the whole theme park on there, and it's animated, and you're looking at it, trying to figure out where exactly you are and where it is you want to go. And you're like, oh, this is the ride I'm trying to get to. Where on God's green earth are we? And what you have to locate is sometimes the maps are helpful, and they have a little sticker. And they will tell you 3 powerful words. You are here. And you can know where it is you want to go all day long. But until you know where you are, you have no idea how to get to where it is you want to be. You are lost. And some of us in this series, some of you, you've been maybe today's your first day in this series, and you're hearing these thoughts, you're hearing this, and maybe the Holy Spirit is even moving on your heart right now, saying you're not living your life for others the way you should. Your family doesn't. You personally, with your gifts you've been given, with the research, you're not doing it. And there's something in you that's like, I ought to take a step forward, but you have no idea where you are. You got to find where you are today. See, we've been using a continuum since the first week of this series. Those of you who've been journeying with us would know this. That our response to the call of God, our response to the command of scriptures to live for others, all of us are responding to it. And some people respond to it with can't. They say they can't do it. I can't live that way. I can't give that way. I can't do that. Some respond not with can't, but could. And they understand in their mind and in their heart that they have the ability to serve. They have they have something they could give finally. They could, but they don't. They've got excuses and memories often of when they did, but right now they say they could, but I won't. Some respond with I will when it's convenient. When my schedule allows, when I've got extra, I'll tip God a little something every once in a while when it's convenient for me. The problem is that doesn't look like sacrifice. That doesn't look like purpose. That doesn't look like God is priority. That looks like I'm still in priority, and if it works well for me, then I will. And then there are those who step into what we've called consistent. where they mark out in their schedule, no, I'm serving here. They budget in their finances. No, I'm giving this. I'm returning to God the first and the best. I'm doing this. They do it with consistency, not whether they feel like it or not. It is decided in advance. And some take it a step further into what we've called costly. And they really do, with their time or their talent, with their resources, with their everything, they give in a costly way. Other people look at the way they give. If other people knew the depths of their sacrifice, they say, I don't know how they do it. It's costly. And what you've got to do, I believe today, whether it's your first day in this series, first time to church, or you've been here every moment of every week throughout this series, hear me. You have to find yourself. You have to figure out where you are. Because if you're ever going to start growing in your living for others, you have to locate how you're living right now. Honestly. Not how you want to appear. Because quite honestly, a lot of people want to appear consistent, but the truth is they respond with what they could do. They love to tell you stories of the past. They love to talk about their potential. They love to talk about their gifting. They love to talk about their raise at work. And they talk about these things, but there's no consistency to their contribution. And so they'll try to fool people into thinking they're consistent when really they just operate as a could. Or there are people, particularly this time of year, you love to because it's convenient for you in the holiday season to serve or to give or to help. And that's great. That's a good little start. But you like to act like it's a sacrifice, like you're doing something costly, when really this is the first time in 11 and a half months that you've thought anything about anybody else but you and yours. And so maybe it feels costly to you because you don't normally ever give any attention to others. But where you're actually at is a convenience space. You have to find where you are honestly. That's why we've been encouraging you through this series to look back on what you've been praying about. That'll tell you some things. To go to your actual schedule. Where did you go? How did you spend your time? What was for yourself? I didn't say you weren't busy. I just said, what were you doing with it? Was it all about you and yours, or was any of it for others? To go look at your bank statement and what it states, what it tells you about how you use your resources. Because some of us trick ourselves into thinking we real generous, when really at the end of the day, all we did was tip God twice throughout the whole calendar year. Where are you at? Because if you don't find where you're at, you'll never take a step forward. See, you don't take the next step through desire. You take it through determination. I believe the reason that you're here today is because there's a desire in you to serve God and to live for others, to do whatever it is he would ask you to do. And if what it is he asks you to do is to serve and to share and to live for others, you say, God, I want to. That's desire, and that's good. But what moves you forward isn't desire. It's determination. It's saying, I'm about to set in my schedule. I'm about to put in my budget. I'm about to set up reoccurring giving. I'm about to sign up for that team, and they're going to put me in that place every single week. I'm about to be there on the fourth Saturday every month. I'm about to sign up, and on the first Saturday, I'm going to do this thing. It's determination that changes things. And in this series, you've heard from a lot of voices. You've heard from me and my experiences, and I'm grateful for you leaning in on those. And I pray that some of what I've journeyed through in all these areas of living for others has been able to help you. We've leaned most importantly into the truth and the calling of the scriptures, Old Testament and New Testament alike. We've heard from the words of Jesus himself, from Paul, from Peter. But today, for a few moments, I want to do something very, very special and very, very different. I want you to lean in for the next few moments for two conversations. Two conversations with people from within our church. People just like you watching, just like you listening. But maybe the difference between them and you is these are people who on some level are walking these things out. These are people who honestly sat where all of us sit at some point, and life was just about them. But they decided, I am going to, because of what Jesus has done for me, what he's doing in me, I want to live for others. They've now taken steps to serve, steps to give. And I want you to hear for a few moments, if you would lean in, why they do it. So come on, could you open your heart for a few moments and let's lean into these conversations together. So throughout this For Others journey, we've been talking about the significance of serving others, using our gifts, talents, ability, strength, time for others. And so we are going to have a conversation. And I have three people who serve in our church incredibly faithfully that some of you may know, some of you may not. If you don't know, this is Brandon Rogers. Brandon serves with our worship team. He serves as our youth lead and just amazing in those things. This is Leon Griffin. You know Leon because he gives you the news every week. But Leon has been serving faithfully for so many years in a variety of capacities. And this is Anna Rogers down here on the end, who also serves in our youth, but you know her probably most as our worship leader on Sundays, the one who directs our teams there and does a fantastic job. And I honestly couldn't think of three better people to share from their hearts, from their experience and their practice, what it looks like to serve others. So we're going to have a conversation. I just want you to lean in on, and I'm going to throw them questions out and let them discuss among themselves, and we're going to learn from their wisdom together. But why to you guys, as we jump into this, is serving God through the church fulfilling to you? Like, what is fulfilling about serving God through the local church?
I would personally say that it's fulfilling because we are demonstrating what Jesus did. Jesus told us that he came to serve and not to be served. So since we are out here serving the community, serving people, that need us, it's doing exactly what God wanted us to do.
Okay, love that.
Started with me as a kid. I was the youngest. Family was all teachers, so they stayed busy. And what amazed me was how focused they were on a lot of things, but how little I was doing. You remember those little garbage cans that used to sit in the corner of everybody's home during the 60s, like that? I made it my job to take them, combine them all, and just take care of the garbage. That was the only thing. And then I understood it was because I watched these people come in, and my grandmother invented the slow cooker. She would put in greens and neck bones and put the gas so low she could leave at 8:30 in the morning, get there at 3 in the afternoon, and it hadn't exploded. Because they would eat and then have to take the dining room up and do all the homework. And it gave me a sense that I needed to serve. Went to a tent revival. She put all the grandbabies to sleep. I was the youngest. I couldn't go to sleep. Nicole Michelle Dell was talking about God, and I said, that's it. I finally made the connection. And from that point forward, all I've looked for is the word being given truthfully. And when I stumbled into you, boy, that's where it all began. And it really came together.
God. What about you, Anna? Why is serving God through the church fulfilling to you?
I think for me, it's just refreshing to be around God's people. Some of my best memories have been serving the Lord and just giving people things that they need, giving people things that they maybe didn't realize they needed, and just having a good time while doing it. It has always been super, super fun for me in every capacity.
Now, I know you say it's always been super fun, and I believe that. But I've also served for a long time. And I know that even things that I love to do, things that I feel called to do, sometimes aren't fun. And so, is it ever difficult to serve? Like, do you ever find that it's like challenging to serve? Even though like your heart may want to do it, but it's like to actually get up or to actually prepare or to actually bring the energy, like that is difficult. And what do you do in those moments? Because before you answer, I want to make sure everybody knows, these are people who've been serving for years. They didn't just they're not like, didn't make it a month and now we brought them, like they have years under their belt. And I think that takes a different level of kind of strength. Like you build some different serving muscles over that time. So is it ever difficult? And what do you do when it's like, all right, this day or this season or this whatever is difficult, but yet I know I'm still supposed to serve?
I think for me, there are definitely days that it's difficult. So I have been serving in the church, in the music ministry since I was a little baby. When I could open my mouth, then it was time for me to start serving and singing. But there are some mornings that like I'm tired or I'm just not feeling it or I'm mad. And I just have to remind myself why we're here, why we serve, why I'm going to sing a couple of songs. Like it's so much more than just people need to hear the right notes. For me, I take it very seriously to foster and protect an environment where people can meet God and worship. And so I have to remind myself of that responsibility that I've put on myself. And then usually by the time I've done the thing and I'm like in the middle of worship, like this is my happy place. So when I'm there, it's so worth it to have made myself get up in the morning, to have made myself, push myself, and by the time I'm in the middle of worship, I'm right here. It's worth it.
Yeah.
Anna, I don't think you understand how many times the preambles for a lot of the songs you sing, you're channeling people that are feeling not just the same way, but it's their feelings coming out of your mouth, and they understand, wait a minute, I'm not that much of a freak. It's true. It's real. And when you talk about your struggles, everybody has them. Everybody has them.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know how to connect, but when you give them, that's one of the reasons I love the dark here, because it gives you a chance to suspend disbelief. And I think that's where real faith and working for God every day, every minute of every day, really begins.
Yeah, it's so good. What do you, now I mentioned that you guys have all been serving God for years in the church. What's the secret? Like, what does it take? Because, and if somebody feels called out or convicted or offended, then this is to you. Because there are plenty of people who can serve at an event. Plenty of people who will serve for a season, 3 months, not 4, 3. But y'all got years under your belt. What is the secret to being faithful to God, faithful to his house, faithful to people that you know and don't know yet, serving for years? What is it that keeps you going now that you got years under your belt serving?
I think for me, it's just, you don't get to see the rewards of all the fruits of your labors, but there's people who will come up to you and say, hey, I got to eat because you guys give me groceries, or my kids got to have Christmas because you guys were here and you guys did this. And yeah, it's not always fun. The weather might be super, super hot, or it might be stormy, or it might be super cold, but it has to get done. Somebody has to do it. Yeah. So all of us up here, everybody in the church that gets out there and they make it happen, it's just fulfilling in the end. Because one day it's gonna all be worth it.
Yeah.
No matter if somebody tells you that you did a good job or they didn't tell you you did a good job, it's all gonna be worth it in God's eyes at the end.
That's right. That's right.
Michael, I don't know if you remember our last trip in the truck before we set up the last time at the Paradiso and brought everything here. Okay. I said, I'm really gonna miss the feeling of working in the vineyard. I'm really gonna miss the physical work. Because it's now all converted to mental. And that's the toughest thing to maintain. Your body can get tired, but when your soul gets tired.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Those were the days. Loading in, loading out. Some of y'all don't know nothing about that. we had church for 3.5 years in a movie theater, and it was a different kind of work. Anna, do you have any thoughts on the staying the course over the years before we transition into our final question?
I think tangibly just taking some time every now and then to just step back and not serve. Not like for a season or anything, but there are a couple Sundays a year that we will just come and we'll enjoy. I want to make sure everyone knows it is important to serve, but just as much as it's important to serve, it's important to eat and to feed yourself. So if you feel like you need to take a break, I would say for me, it's always better to take that break early on than to wait for everything to pile up and get overwhelmed. That's where a lot of people, they let it get overwhelming and then you don't want to come back.
Right.
And so for me, like taking those strategically throughout the year, every now and then, that has helped me to be able to keep going.
Yeah. When you're saying that, I think of that statement that is made about Jesus. It said that Jesus often withdrew.
Yeah.
And that word to withdraw meant beforehand and with intention. So he's like, I'm about to rest because I know what I got to do. Whereas most of us, it's like, I can't do no more, I have to rest.
Yeah.
And we have it backwards. And so I think that's really, really wise. So in conclusion, what would you guys tell the person who they know, if they're being honest with themselves, that they're not serving God by serving people through the church in a consistent way, and certainly not in a costly way? What would you encourage them in? Maybe they've got fears. Maybe they served before and they felt overworked or abused or taken advantage of. Maybe they feel like their life is so full, so demanding that they don't have the space or time for. What would you tell the person who currently isn't using their time, their strength, their talent to serve God through the church?
I would say on a consistent basis, a full calendar has saved my life before. There were times that I was so busy and doing stuff, I didn't have time to think about everything that was wrong in my life. And then for a costly perspective, I would just talk about the scripture. It says, I've never seen the righteous forsaken, nor their children begging for bread. And when we made a decision to serve faithfully, we've never been forsaken.
Yeah.
Like there have been times that God has provided in ways I would have never even imagined. And we are living in those blessings now. So I'm just so excited to see what else he's going to do.
Amazing. Much the same. It's not necessarily just the result. It is knowing that you put everything you can into the one who put everything he had into you.
Yes.
I'm just paying it back.
Yeah.
That's all I'm doing.
Wow.
Yes.
I mean, I did 14 and a half years. I missed 4 days of work in 14 and a half years as a weatherman. And that was just because I knew they were out there. They needed somebody that was going to come make them laugh, know what the weather was going to be, but leave them in a better mood than they woke.
Yeah. It's really good. Really good. Well, I want to thank you guys for two things. One, for being a part of this today, for sharing with others your wisdom, your experience, but also thank you for modeling what it looks like to serve others, to live for others with your time and energy. Because the example that you set, the example that you see, gives every word that you've spoken like the character and the truth that backs it up. So people sense that today. So can you, like in your living room or you listen to this podcast, can you just clap for them and thank God for their sacrifice, their service on today? So I have with me now 3 people from our church, Courtney Muldrow, Sarah, and Joe King, who we're going to take just a moment and have a conversation around one of the aspects that we've been discussing throughout this entire series of living for others, and that's the idea of being someone who gives. And I want to hear from their perspective what it means and what it's like to be someone, why it's important to them to be someone who lives for others in the arena that is giving from their finances. So with that, I've got a few questions for them, and I'm gonna throw them out to them and let them talk as they would like. But the first question is this: why is giving to God through the church significant to you? Who wants to take it?
I'll take it.
Go, Courtney.
Well, giving to God is significant to me because it shows 2 things. I trust him and I'm obedient, because Malachi 3:10, it tells us to bring the best first, and then he'll pour out room. We don't even have room to receive what he gives us. So by doing that, I'm being obedient to God and also trusting him. And when you think about it, I'm not trusting him with something that is solely mine because he gave it to me. But I'm trusting him enough to say, hey, I trust you. I'm going to return a portion of what you gave me because you commanded me to, and because I trust that whatever I give, you will supply me with whatever I need. I won't lack for anything.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with all of that. That's what he said.
Absolutely. Any other thoughts from you guys on the why is giving to God through the church significant to you?
I think for me, a big part of it is I see what is happening with what we're giving. In a lot of other institutions, what I've seen is that they ask to give, but then you don't really see the effort. You don't know where it goes.
Yeah.
And that's definitely different here.
Okay. That thought leads into another question, like from that's just, and it's on my mind. Like, what does it mean to you to be a part of fueling God's work through the earth by giving? Like, because I have this statement I've made for years. It's probably not originally mine, although I'll just take credit for it. But it's the gospel is free, but ministry is expensive. And like Jesus is free. You want Jesus? He comes for free 99. But like telling people about Jesus, serving people food, blessing kids with toys, all like Walmart's grateful for our business, but they ain't about to bless us like that. And so what does it mean to you to be a part of fueling God's work in the earth? Because when we give, that's kind of what we're doing. We're fueling his work in the earth. What does it mean to you to be a part of that through giving?
So I know for us, we went through a period of time, a season, you may call it, last year. We didn't have money for groceries, and it was hard. We weren't in our church home then, and then my brother invited us here, and he told us about the grocery drive-thru and the things that this church does, and I said that's where I want to go and try out. And we've been nonstop. We serve, we do grocery pickup, we do the Christmas Palooza, and we're serving. And God has blessed us through that, and then through our tithing now, because that season is over. But now we're able to be good stewards of our money and give back what He gives to us every single week.
Wow, that's cool. That's cool.
Well, I think it's like Leon tells us in the news all the time, we're fueling the ministry.
Yeah.
When we drive our car, we got to put fuel in it. Like for me, I love to fuel my body, even when I don't need to. But it's the same with the ministry. It has to, for us to be the church that God called us to be, we have to give to it. We have to give our tithe so we can be that church, because we do so much in the community, from feeding the neighbors to doing the blight patrol and all of that good stuff. And then it's also the best way we get to spread the gospel of Jesus. Right. Because like you said, it's not cheap for ministry. We need to fuel it. So when we put money, especially into believing, we know where our money is going because we can see it through the community. We have testimonies of people coming up to us when we have on our shirts telling us how our church helped them. Yeah. So,
Sarah, you were talking about just like being in a season where you did have like tangible need, and then like not being in that season anymore. And not that that's always like the evidence of God's provision, but one of the questions that I have is, how have you seen the provision of God in your own life? Like, what does that look like? Because I think sometimes people think like, okay, if I put money in the yellow box, then I'm gonna go open the mailbox, and there's the money. Like God portal, like, and there are people who will say those kind of things. I just don't believe that what they're saying is true. Like, what does like God providing look like to you?
So for us, we both have self-employed businesses, and there's weeks that we get phone calls after phone calls, and the money is coming in. But we also notice that when we're not good stewards, or we're overspending, or not looking at our finances and budgets, sometimes those calls stop coming in as much. And when we reevaluate what we're doing, things start picking up. And I don't know if it's a God thing or whatever, but throughout all of that, we're still tithing on every single income that we have coming in, and He keeps blessing us. And we're not eating steak every night. We're not enjoying the rich life or anything like that. We still have really hard weeks. but we can still see God moving throughout our household and throughout our community with even, what we give.
Yeah. I heard one time that faith is a perspective. That it's how I choose to see all that I see. And I think with giving, that becomes the truest. It's like, I don't see that as being, like you were saying, getting the phone ringing. Well, that wasn't necessarily just attributed to like my great marketing plan that we ran 2 years ago, or the shrewdness of where I place my business cards. I mean, that stuff matters, but it's also like, God, you see us. God, you're taking care of us.
And it's trusting. I mean, it is 1,000% trust.
Yeah.
Because we went from, a normal job that we have insurance, we have all the things, and then just said, hey, this is what we're going to do now, and this is where God felt like we needed to be, and we've been fruitful from that, and we just had to trust Him that we could.
Yeah.
It's real easy to trust that God is providing when the phone is ringing off the hook. It's really hard to trust that He's got you when it stops ringing.
Yeah.
But and we get stressed out and we're like, man, I don't know, how are we going to make things work? It's like, you know what? It's all good. God's got us.
Yeah.
And it always works out.
Wow. So with that thought, what would you guys say to the person who's maybe hesitant? Maybe they've been a part of the church for a while, or they've been tracking through the series, and they're like, okay, I know I need to live for others, but if they're honest, they know like in this area of my life, like the financial side, the generosity side, they know they're not, and they're hesitant about trusting God with their finances, whether it's consistently or maybe it's the person who's consistent and they feel God laying on their heart to do something costly, and they're like, I'm consistent, team consistent. Like, what would you say to the person who's just wrestling with those thoughts right now?
Trust God. Because as y'all were saying, a lot of times when we give, we're not getting back that financial. There are days when it's like, ooh, Jesus. Yeah, like where is this bill gonna get paid? Which Peter am I gonna rob? But when we trust God, I always like to say it's not as costly as we think. It costs us more not to trust God. We can't just trust God in the areas where we want to and not this one, because giving is a commandment. Like as He tells us to. You couldn't come to this church or any other church if people were not generous to give. So trust Him, because Malachi 3:10, He also gave a promise that He'll bless us where the storehouses will be running over.
Yeah.
So if we trust Him with our finances, watch Him. Don't do it just to give back. Like, don't let that be your all, but do it and watch what you receive, because health, friendships, family, all of that is more valuable at times than just money and material things. So watch what He does once you do what He's commanded you to do through giving.
Wow, that's good.
And it's faith, it's having the faith, knowing that you're giving because He gave His Son for us. You know, and so why can't we have the faith in Him that He's going to bless us back? And if you can't give with your money, give with your time. Help serve the church that you're going to, if it's our church or another, or pray. Just, take time during your day to pray for our pastor or, people in our church, because sometimes maybe you don't have the money and you don't have the trust or the faith yet, but it will come, because the more you talk to Him, the more He is going to convict you to give. And that's how I've always felt. And even when we first started coming here, we weren't giving to anybody, but then it felt like, a conviction right away. Like, hey, I feel like I need to start giving with my time and then with my time.
Wow. I think generosity does grow. Like, if it starts in some area, it does start to bleed into all areas. It's generosity when it's done from the right place. Like, if I am generously giving of my time, it can't and won't just stay there.
Right.
Because it's like, no, this has got to affect, I got these talents, or I got this connection, or you know what, God has given me something. I know I act like it, but like, it does bleed. Thank you guys for your for your example, but thank you also just for sharing with people. I know it can be scary, but sometimes it's helpful not to see or hear the Bible or hear the preacher, but to hear from someone walking out the Bible. And so thank you for sharing today. Again, I want to thank everyone who shared. I want to thank you for leaning in for these moments. Thank you to Courtney and to Joe and to Sarah, to Anna, to Brandon, to Leon for sharing with us, and also for modeling for us what it is to serve, what it is to give, and for you to be able to hear their heart. But can I tell you, as we come to a close of this sermon, a close of this series, I need you to know, and if you're taking notes today, maybe you've written a few of these things down, but would you know today and write this down? It's time to serve. It's time to serve. I can't say it any plainer. I ain't trying to sugarcoat it. I ain't trying to make it nice to you. Listen, the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. It's time to serve. If you are here and you're not serving, you're not living for others, it's time to serve. And so join a team today. You say, well, I got to pray about it. No, you don't. You don't have to pray about what is clear in Scripture. You need to clear your schedule. And so what do? Join a team today. You can do that online. Go to our website, believing.church, and you can find yourself a team. You can serve online. You can serve in person, connected to Sunday services. You can serve with outreach. You can serve by saying, hey, I want to help lead a group in the spring season. I want to help be a part of these things. I want to be a part of outreach. I hear so much about the church serving and blessing and helping and sharing and building and caring. And yes, some of you need to sign up and join outreach and say, when there's an opportunity to serve, when there's an opportunity to bless, I'm going to roll up my sleeves and be about this life. Maybe you would even jump into serving through Christmas Palooza. One of the largest opportunities of service that we create all year is coming up here in December. Just literally less than a month from now, we're going to serve thousands of people over the course of a few days. Toys for kids, groceries for families, in an uplifting and creative and faith-filled environment. And we need help. And so many people have signed up to serve, and to that we thank you. In fact, we only have a few spots left on each of the days. But some of you really need to roll up your sleeves and say, this Christmas isn't going to be just about me. I am going to give. I am going to serve because I know it's time for me to serve. But can I tell you what else? It's time to give. Oh, write it down. It's time to give. Some of us have brought our excuse to ourselves, and we think to God for years as to why we don't give. Into why we can't give, and I can't afford it. Friend, you can't afford not to give. Because the call of God is too great. The work of God is too important. And not only that, you need His blessing on your finances more than you need another budget class. More than you need to understand. You need the greed on your heart to be broken off of it, so that way you would stop spending all that comes in. And it'll never happen through greater discipline in your own mind. It'll happen when you start giving. So maybe today you would commit in your heart. You would begin, the Spirit of God has begun to speak to you. And coming in 2 weeks from now with our vision offering that's all about others, you're going to come ready to give. You're not going to wait for somebody to impress on your heart. You're not going to wait for somebody to play a video and motivate you or tell you another story. You know it's time for you to start giving. You have been receiving for long enough. It's now time to start contributing. Some of you need to begin giving consistently. Some of you really do need to begin to tithe. Return to God the first and the best. And maybe you need to go to the online giving stuff today and set up reoccurring giving where every time I get paid, this is going to happen. I am not thinking about it. I am returning to God the first and the best. Some of you need to sit down at the kitchen table today with your budget and go, we got to figure out a way to get consistent with returning to God something for others. See, that's the thing. At the end of the day, the person who doesn't live their life for others lives their life for themselves. Because what is it that Jesus said? I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. Jesus said, when you've done it to the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you have done it unto me. You know, the last few weeks I've had a lot of funerals in my life, a lot of passings of people near to me and dear to me. My wife's grandfather passed away, I guess it's about 2 weeks ago. And he's in his 90s, lived a beautiful life, loved Jesus, served the church. I mean, literally at his funeral, the preacher was talking about how he ushered in the same church from the time he was 19 until he was 87 years old. Like, come on now, that's some ushering. Like loved God, loved the church, but he's passed. A dear friend of mine in our church, Karen Clark, who at our in-person services, when she would come, would often try to sit right behind me in service and give me a hug after services. I saw her before and after services so many times over the course of many, many years. She suddenly, after a successful kidney transplant, passed away. And just gone. Not even that old. Gone. Here one day and gone. I got word earlier this week that a friend of mine, the husband of a dear friend of mine, some people who were a part of our church years ago, but still are in this city, still do great work in this city, who we support and help and love and believe in, that he passed away. And after a multi-year fight with cancer, in the end, cancer took him out, as it does many of us today. And I've just thought and interacted with death a lot more than usual, even for a preacher, in the last few weeks. And it's had me thinking about the first funeral I can remember going to. You know, because when you're a kid, you don't really go to funerals all that much, unless a grandparent kind of died. You don't really find yourself there. But I remember, at least the one I remember. And I remember this song that was sung during that funeral. And at the time, it was the first time I had heard this song. And I ain't gonna sing it for you. I ain't gonna play it for you, because it's kind of cheesy, gotta be honest with you. But the message of it is so powerful. It has this chorus that says, "Thank you for giving to the Lord. I am a life that was changed." And it repeats that refrain over and over again, but it paints these pictures throughout the song of this person being in heaven and someone coming up to them who had been in a little class at church that they had led when this person was a child. And every week, this person who led the class, who had now passed, who was being thanked for giving to the Lord, gave kids the opportunity to put their faith in Jesus. And the way the story goes, as the song would tell, is that, one day when you were praying that prayer, I prayed that prayer. And Jesus came and lived on the inside of me. And now I'm in heaven with you because you gave of yourself. It paints all these different scenarios. The third verse of it talks about just this line of people lining up, telling this person, "Thank you, because I am here. I am in heaven. I know him because of you." And I think sometimes we have our present way too in front of us, and we forget eternity. Because you don't know the impact. You don't know the power. You don't know the legacy that you are giving and leaving because you live for others. You have no idea the families who a little bit of hope and a little bit of faith is being restored in them because you gave up your Saturdays and made sure they had groceries. You have no idea the kids who are going to grow up loving God's house and loving his people because you, every Sunday, you came to a worship service, but then you served in a worship service and you taught kids about Jesus, and they had a friendly, consistent face that loved them and hugged them and gave them snacks and prayed with them. And one day they asked Jesus into their heart, and their life was changed forever. You have no idea who was able to be blessed because you said, God gets my first and he gets my best in my finances. And because you gave, the church had money to meet needs when they showed up. And people said, God sees me, God knows me, God loves me. And their life was changed because you lived for others. You have no idea. No idea what God is doing through your sacrifice, through your service, through your generosity. Unless you don't sacrifice and don't serve and aren't generous. And then you know he ain't doing nothing through you. Because you're not living for others. You say, that's harsh. That's true. And in the most selfish and entitled moment in human history, I believe, I think we need somebody to call a spade and say, friend, it is time for us to live for others. Our city is hurting. Our community is broken. There are needs all around us. And it's time for you and it's time for me to get up off our spiritual rear end and serve and sacrifice and give and love and pray and share for others. Because when we've done it to the least of these, whether we see it, can count it or not, we've done it unto him. Father, today I thank you. And Father, I pray that you would move and motivate us by the power of your Holy Spirit to share, to give, to serve. For the person that's not giving financially right now, convict them and call them, empower them to give with determination and consistency. For the person who's not serving, they got every reason. They're too young, they're too old, they're too tired, they're too whatever. Father, I pray you convict them now. And help them to see the others that would be served, the others that could be changed, the people that need to see their face, the people that need to feel their service, the people that need them to host, they need them to sing, they need them to play, they need them to lead the group, they need them to serve it with the outreach, they need them. Father, I pray that weight would sit on our hearts because it sits on your heart, and that we would be people who live for others, for your honor, and for your glory, most of all. We pray all this, Jesus, in your name. And everybody said,